Elise, I was hoping you could talk to us a little bit about what are the changes as the climate lead for the Lower El McClellan tribe. What are the changes we're seeing here? We just saw this presentation which was looking at some of the impacts of sea level rise or some of the impacts of loss in the Great Barrier Reef and the coral. What are the things happening in this area that most have your concern?
Yeah, well, if greenhouse gas emissions continue at the rate that they're at currently, we'll see warmer air, warmer temperatures, less snowpack in our mountains, increased wildfire risk, and increased flood risk. In terms of stream conditions, that means that we'll have higher flows in the winter and less flow in the summertime. In terms of Olympic Peninsula glaciers, already in our lifetime we've seen a huge decrease in surface area of those glaciers, and it is projected that in our lifetimes we will not see Olympic Peninsula glaciers anymore. So, yeah. Oh, and in terms of ocean acidification and sea level rise, that is also projected to be an issue. And in our region, we have glaciers that used to cover this entire area. So I guess fortunately, the earth or the landmass here is rising. So it's combating sea level rise, opposed to what other coastal communities are experiencing, but sea level is still rising, and it's projected that by 2100 we would see between 1.2 and 2.5 feet of the sea level rise here in this region, Port Angeles area.
Thank you. In this last year, we had the amazing opportunity to celebrate return of fishing on the Elwha River, and that is such an important part of the culture. And I think about things like Elise was just mentioning, how with now we're getting our very dry summers, and then we get snow pretty early sometimes, and then we get a Pineapple Express or an atmospheric river or whatever the name of the month is, and we get rain on snow events. And oftentimes that rain on snow event is occurring right at the time, right after salmon have laid their eggs in our rivers. And so now you get massive flooding that is occurring in the fall, as opposed to the summer when we've seen it historically. I'm curious to understand a bit more that core part of culture, of all of our culture, and particularly of the Clallam people, coupled with these changes. How does that change culture? How does that change what happens?
It has a real heavy impact on our people. It has a heavy impact in regards to what are our next steps that our generations have to look at, and the challenges that they're going to have, the challenges that they're faced with. If we don't start stepping up more, what is needed out there for the rivers, the streams, and the ocean. Again, in those parts of it, we see a little bit of what was transpiring in the waters in general itself, but it also has an impact of our waters itself. The limitations that we have on feeding our families with the salmon. It has an impact on going out and digging for clams and having some of those resources just as well. I mean, even with the plants that we cherish so much in different avenues on that part, even in insects, that has a heavy impact in the river basins of what we have found out and what's being studied in Elwha River in general before the dams were up and after the dams. But there's a lot of cultural values that we look at in regards to being able to bring back our songs and our dances. And those are something that we talked about when the dams came out, of how it revived, how not only culturally but spiritually, of being able to bring the songs and the dances for our young ones. But what was questioned of me when I was standing there, when we opened up the river in October of last year, in silence, was what was missing. What was missing along those riverbanks all of those years that we weren't able to fish. And it was us as tribal memberships, us as our youth being able to stand along that river, because I know when I was younger, that was my backyard. I got to run up and down the riverbanks and play. And that was something that we had missed, and we had lacked through all of these years with our kids, of not having them running around the riverbanks and playing. Having them observe what's coming back with the resources in general, and having the opportunity to see the eagles and some of the other wildlife build up. Those are the things that we have missed, and that's what we're seeing as reviving through generations to come, through the cultural values of it, is really being able to stand along the river and see the fish come back. That first dam that come back, that was down, that next day we had the first coho that passed. And that was something of our community membership and our elders that we have lost so many and having their stories brought forth to us. That's what we lost. We lost a lot of the stories that transpired, not only the thunder and the eagle stories in general itself, but there are so many other stories. Seeing the creation site for the first time in over 100 years. Being able to hike up there and being able to use the technologies that we had for our elders that had told the stories to us in generations on that part of it, but being able to show them on the cell phone now, it's reality. It wasn't a myth, it was reality. And seeing some of that, the avenues of it reviving again, seeing the growth of the vegetation that's transpired in many ways in different avenues. That's part of the cultures that really impacted our people in their communities. Not only us, the surrounding, not only us, has it impacted everything.
And I think that's something for me that's been so powerful by this performance today, and by the words you're sharing, is the power of hope, the power of amazing things that can still happen, community coming together, even in the face of big change, in the face of pretty scary changes. And I really was hoping to wrap up our conversation by moving to what's some things we can do, or what is happening around in our community for us to move into. So Kevin, I was hoping perhaps you could talk a bit. Kevin, as we mentioned earlier, is the superintendent of the Olympic Coast National Marine Sanctuary, our sacred and our preserved areas on the outer coast, outside on the ocean. And Kevin, can you talk a bit about the changes you're seeing in the ocean, and then what is the sanctuary working on and doing to help make to prepare for that?
Sure, thank you. A lot of what we're seeing as far as changes in the ocean have already been mentioned, either here in this venue or through the performance that we saw. Things like the term marine heat waves, that didn't exist 10 years ago. And we're seeing them regularly now. Ocean acidification is probably the biggest concern that we have. I'm gonna take a quick sidebar. The ocean is not getting so acidic that you touch it and it's going to burn you. And it's not getting so acidic that it's going to dissolve, say, an adult Dungeness crab or a full-grown oyster. But all of those, anything with a shell has a life cycle that starts really, really small. And ocean acidification is affecting them at that life stage, and it's really bad. So the sanctuary, we've got oceanographic buoys out there. We monitor the ocean for temperature, for zones where there's no oxygen whatsoever. That happens every year, and it's happening more and more often. And it's terrible for the marine life. So we monitor that to try and get a hold of as much information as we can to then send out to fishermen. Let them know to pull up their crab pots, because if they don't, they're going to pull up a pot full of dead crab. That's not good for anyone. Things like that. We're trying our best to collect the information and then share it through outreach and education activities that we perform in and around the peninsula.
Thank you. And speaking of those education and outreach opportunities, I'd love to pass things over to Melissa Williams with the Farrow Marine Life Center and really get a sense of what are the options, what are the opportunities and plans for this community, or the roles that the Farrow Marine Life Center is going to play in engaging the community and the impacts of climate change on the marine environment.
Sure, well, I would just like to say that like we experienced today with this performance, The spaces that bring us together as neighbors and community members are critical to our future. The places where we can gather and learn from each other and listen to each other and have conversations are some of the most important spaces that we can have right now. And so in the current Vero Marine Life Center, we start with the assumption that everyone comes in from a different place, just like we all came in today and had different experiences and different backgrounds and different perspectives. And everybody is going in a slightly different direction. And we work hard to try to get everyone at least on the same page about understanding what's going on locally and how we can all make a difference. And the other piece, as we look to our future, the Marine Discovery Center that we'll be building with the sanctuary folks, is really creating more open conversations and more spaces like this, so that all folks can come together and figure out what is our next step, how do we address, how do we learn from the folks that have been here since time immemorial and the changes that they have seen, and how do we listen to each other and come together and make a difference. And so it's very important that we have those spaces and that we have ways to gather and to have conversations with each other.
So, to wrap things up, what I really was just hoping to get a sense from all the panelists are how we find that balance, how we have these issues that are going on around us, but we want to be a positive actor in the community. We want to bring about hope. We want to bring about partnership and collaboration. What are the things that give you a sense of opportunity and positivity, or ways you can engage to make a difference?
Since I have the microphone, I'll go first. It's really important to me, and I think to everyone, to recognize that humans are a very important part of any ecosystem. We are part of the environment. My wife and I have two wonderful daughters, and I would be really bad at my job. I would be a bad father. I would be a bad representative of the human race if I didn't do everything possible to leave the world a better place for them. And I think there's hope in the next generation.
I think we're going I think that's right, but I think there's an awful lot that adults can do differently. And so I would just say that one of the most important things that we can all agree to do is to engage in things that make us a little uncomfortable. Our best learning happens when we step outside our comfort zone, and that's actually where I see the most hope, especially in our community. We have a lot of challenges, but I see so many people of all walks of life coming together to try to address those challenges. And we may not always agree about how to address those challenges, but we sure do care. And that is such an important first step. I see adults who have never, ever, ever been to the ocean reach out and put their fingers gently between the spines of a sea urchin with the same awe and wonder that I see 5-year-olds do it. So we as adults need to recapture that joy and marvel that we have at our natural cycles and our natural environment, and realize that we're part of that solution as well.
Yes, so mine, I thought it tied in. I didn't answer the second part of the first question, is what I hope people take away. And actually these two fit together, and that is, I'd love people to take away the thought, what is my ability to respond? In a sense, what is my responsibility then? How can I respond? And then the other one is the hope as well, is that Baba and I and all of the artists in this group, and with the audience too, I became aware of a term recently. I think it's liminal space. It's like, it's this tension we carry being aware of the realities, the existential realities, the climate issues do bring up that and it's, I have to be aware of it, and I read about it, and you carry that, but at the same time, you're in this beautiful space and with friends and doing things that are really important, and finding that balance to be able to carry that and function. And that is through that. What is my ability to respond? What can I bring to this issue? And as a theatre arts professional and with Babao, that is to help bring this performance here. And that actually is a way to function and give hope through actually acting on what I can do about this issue. Yeah.
I think just as being human, I think it's very important for us to connect with the natural world, and I think that we can all learn so much by taking the time to just be in nature, and whether that means going to the beach or planting things in your garden or planting trees outside. I think it's just a reminder that we can all hone in on this I guess, discouragement that we feel in the light of climate change by just coming back to what is part of being human. It's so foundational, and it's kind of lacking in the societal construct that we're in. Just being in nature, and I think a lot of healing happens from that.
Yeah.
I really echo with what everybody has stated as well, but I think a lot of the hope, the prayers, the belief, the challenges that we have, and how we have to unify and come together on it, because each one of us has our own opinions. Each departments, each agencies, federal, state, whatever it may be out there. But it's a challenge in itself, because a lot of the times we're the problem. It's the human race itself, you know, and part of it in regards to what we have to do to move forward is really, we rely a lot on our future generations and the technologies that we have now that we didn't have in the earlier years. But it's something of what I have to go back to is our ancestral beliefs on how they were able to read nature in general, on being able to protect what was there and the avenues that we have to move forward with. It's really educating ourselves, it's really outreaching to ourselves, and really working with one another in different avenues, because it is that give and take. It is really understanding what we can do and how we can help you, and vice versa through that processes of it. But really focus and make the priorities of what it may be. I mean, you see across the nations the plastic bottles that float off to other islands, and the impact of the pollutions that it have, even in our own harbor, the pollutions that we have out there. So it's building that knowledge with one another and really recognize on how we can build it together in our territories, because each territory is unique in its own manner. And it has that importance for our future generations. You see the little boy on the stage tonight. That's part of our future generations. You know, I had a couple of our staff here with their little ones. Again, that's our future generations that we'll have to look out for through that part of it. But it's really human nature in general that we need to take a look at ourselves and what is it that we're looking at that we're not doing right, that we need to change within ourselves.
I think we've been talking a lot about impact and connection, and as a producer of the project, I've seen the impact a performance like this to our artists and us as well. So it's actually a two-way impact that a space like this can create, or a project like this can create, because a lot of the musicians here, now they all have fans in their home country and lots of followers, and they see, you know, when you're singing about an issue, when you play traditional instruments, when you have a message, there's an audience, there's a space for them. That itself is actually encouraging a whole new, a whole community behind them to actually act on the issue as well. So I like to think about, you know, when you have an idea, you draw a circle, and when this circle gets bigger and bigger, there's actually more space for other people to come in. And I think every one of us have a responsibility to respond to an idea that you have and draw a circle. You know, it might start with small, but who knows? You know, 9 years later, Tim and I's circle got pretty big. And another thing I like to mention is I hope the show today shares this message that, you know, we are actually not separate from each other, because everyone, although we all come from different countries, but we actually share a lot of commonalities, and there's even common words. Everyone share an instrument and rhythm, and these borders didn't exist on the ocean. And there's more common things that we share than we thought. We just have to find them. So yeah, that's my answer. And I just want to quickly also thank Andrew Reisiger and his family. Please raise your hands. So Andrew has been developing a lot of the educational and impact program with us over the past 4 years. And Andrew lives on Vashon, and we're so happy that you're here sharing this space with us. And thank you everyone for being here.
Well, on behalf of all of us here in Clown County, and thank you. Thank you for bringing this experience to us. Thank you for sharing in this story. It is such an honor to think about how we are all in this together, and at the same time to recognize that there are many things happening globally that sometimes feels like we don't have a lot we can do about. There's not a lot of impact I feel like I can have sometimes on the little thing, on things like net carbon. However, there are things we can really have an amazing positive impact on right here in this community as we prepare for the changes that are happening. And it always leads me back to a quote by Gary Snyder, who talks about you need to find your place on the planet, dig in, and take responsibility from there. And so it's powerful to be in this community with all of you, inspired for the things we can do to help make this a better place and prepare for the changes that are happening. And thank you all for staying after and listening to us.